أهلا بكم إلى هذا اللقاء الخاص الذي نجريه مع السيدة باربرا مساعدة وزير الخارجية الأميركي لشؤون الشرق الأدنى. سيدة باربرا، أهلا وسهلا بك معنا. شهر رمضان بدأ، وزير بلينكن يتحدث عن اتفاق على الطاولة، ولكننا لا نزال أمام عدم اتفاق هدنة. هل تتوقعون حصول ذلك في الأيام القليلة المقبلة؟
Absolutely, Carolina. We remain hopeful. There is a good proposal on the table. We are waiting to see whether Hamas will take it. We had hoped that this would be the case even before the start of the holy month of Ramadan. It would give great relief, of course, to the people of Gaza, but in a broader sense to the Palestinian community on the West Bank as well. And we are still hopeful, and we are working day and night to bring that agreement to conclusion.
ما هو الموقف اليوم الأمريكي؟ فقط لنوضح، ما هو الموقف الأمريكي فيما يتعلق بوقف إطلاق النار في غزة؟
So look, we believe that it's quite critical to get to that point of a deal that would open the door to many things. Of course, we want to see hostages returned. We want to see our own American citizens released to their families, and the citizens of many other countries released to their families. We think it's a doorway to many other opportunities. And of course, in the immediate sense, it would be at least 6 weeks of calm, and it would give opportunities to really push in from every direction humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza, who are in quite a critical state right now. But we think that's a door that, once opened, will open the pathway to some other possibilities.
هل ستلجأ مرة جديدة الولايات المتحدة لحق النقد ضد قرار في مجلس الأمن لوقف إطلاق النار في غزة؟ في المرة السابقة الموضوع كان مرتبط بالمحادثات وعدم الرغبة الأمريكية في تعريضها للخطر.
Yes, but you have to recognize one thing. Calling for a ceasefire without conditions, well, I recognize what compels people to support that. It would not bring an enduring ceasefire or an enduring peace, and that's what we're driving for. So this is a first step. And we think it's a really critical first step, and we really think it's important that Hamas take this opportunity.
هناك العديد من الخطوط الحمراء والتقارير المتعلقة بخطوط حمراء أمريكية على إسرائيل. هل رفح واحدة منها؟ يعني هناك أيضا مطالبات بخطة واضحة إسرائيلية في رفح.
So I think you heard the president speak to this several times in the last week, and Secretary Blinken as well. They've been very clear that in this setting right now, where you have 1.4 million Palestinians crowded in really miserable conditions, in really dire conditions around and in Rafah, it's inconceivable, and indeed the president said unacceptable for a military operation to go forward. Those people need care. They would need to be moved safely and securely to another location, which is quite an undertaking, and there provided food and sustenance, life support. So it's not a simple matter. It's not a simple matter of telling people to move north. It's a rather complex operation, and it has to precede any thought of going into Rafah. Now, why do the Israelis want to go into Rafah? Because there are still 4 Hamas battalions, which pose a threat. But again, the humanitarian issues have to take first priority.
لو لم نكن أمام مثل هذه الخطة، لم تقدم للأمريكيين، هل سنكون أمام أي خطوات ربما تتعلق بحظر بعض الأسلحة أو حتى في القرارات الدبلوماسية؟
Look, what I would say, Carolina, is that there are ongoing discussions on a daily basis at senior-most levels between the U.S. and Israeli governments. This is a very dynamic discussion. I don't want to get into hypotheticals, but we are making it very clear publicly, as the President did, and privately, what needs to occur.
كيف تفسرين لهذا الجزء من العالم عدم إمكانية الولايات المتحدة التأثير على الإسرائيليين رغم كل الدعم غير المشروط الذي أعلن عنه الرئيس بايدن منذ 7 أكتوبر؟
Look, I'll offer a couple of thoughts. I went with Secretary Blinken to Israel 5 days after the massacre, and we found not just the government, but the entire society in a state of acute shock and trauma. Trauma that really is beyond comprehension unless you've gone through it or you have had the opportunity to talk to survivors, as we did, and people who witnessed what occurred on October 7th and 8th and 9th as Israeli security forces worked to end the hostage-taking and to expel Hamas fighters from communities in southern Israel. That trauma, that sense of shock and fear and anxiety still haunts, still stalks Israeli society. And it shapes the thinking and the prioritization that the Israeli government has given to going after Hamas. Israel's a sovereign country, and it has the responsibility to look after the security of its people. It also has other responsibilities, which we have been at pains to remind Israeli officials about: the responsibilities towards that civilian population, the responsibilities to take greater care, to deconflict operations. It has been a long and sometimes very difficult set of discussions. And in the same way, we have had to remind our Israeli partners of their responsibility for the humanitarian assistance to the population. I don't think you could cite any country in the world in which the U.S. directs the country, however small or big, to do this or to do that, and that's what happens. It's a dialogue, it's influence and support that we bring, but we also leverage very tough messages. And over time, those messages have taken effect, but it's still a set of discussions we have to have every day.
هناك العديد من النقاط الخلافية بين الإسرائيليين والأمريكيين، ولكن إقامة دولة فلسطينية مستقلة هي واحدة منها. ماذا تفعلون في هذا الإطار؟
So we are very clear on this point, and we have been since the first days of the administration. And really, the position of the Biden administration, as the president has articulated, the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, is very clear on this point. To provide security for Israelis and to provide equal measures of security and the chance for a normal life for Palestinians, we absolutely believe the only solution is a Palestinian state, negotiated and side by side to Israel in a way that both peoples can get on with their lives. This is going to be, this was always going to be an exceptionally difficult road to pursue, and we found that in the past, over the last decades. It's been an uncertain path, but it is a quest for statehood on the part of the Palestinians that we absolutely believe is legitimate, and that is the answer to the insecurity that currently haunts the Palestinian people and Israeli people.
هل نتوقع مكالمة هاتفية قريباً بين الرئيس بايدن ونتنياهو؟
Well, I'm not going to preview the president's calendar, but we have very regular engagements at that level and, of course, at the ministerial level.
منذ الإعلان عن حارس الازدهار لحماية الملاحة الدولية في البحر الأحمر، أبطأت الضربات الأمريكية هجمات الحوثيين، ولكنها لم توقفها ولم تكن حازمة. ما رأيك؟
Well, I'm not sure I would agree with that assessment, and I wouldn't say also that given the nature of the threat that the Houthi attacks present, and not just to ships, to the mariners, to the sailors who were on those ships, it is not a one-shot kind of operation. It is not something that we can bring to a close overnight, but we have a large and growing coalition of like-minded partners who are determined to defend shipping, to keep open the passage for freedom of navigation, but also to protect the peoples of the Red Sea countries. Let me just point out, in the last several attacks, the Houthis killed 3 sailors and injured critically several others. These men had nothing to do with the conflict. They had nothing to do with it. They were making their living in very tough conditions. And in attacking these ships, 3 of them in the last several days, the Houthis have been responsible for a huge 18-mile oil spill in the Red Sea and dumping of tons of fertilizer and other caustic chemicals into the really fragile marine ecosystem of the Red Sea that is so destructive to the fishermen who ply their trade in the Red Sea. And above all, it is devastating for food security for people in Yemen who've had ships turn away that were going to bring precious grains, corn, to the people of Yemen who live with great food insecurity. And so do the countries of the Horn of Africa. This is devastating for them. It's devastating for the economies of Egypt and Jordan. And so the notion that the Houthis are doing something good for the Palestinians is just nonsense.
هناك علامات استفهام حول هذه الاستراتيجية الأمريكية ضد الحوثيين. هناك كان تحالف عربي على بعد أميال من الحديدة وبقرار أمريكي لم يتم تحريره.
So look, I don't think it really does a lot of good to go down memory lane, to go down to what should have, could have happened. The fact is Iran, because we haven't mentioned Iran's role here, Iran has supplied advanced weaponry to the Houthi that has allowed them to target shipping, to target innocent people, to threaten other countries. To what end? Really, they claim it's on behalf of the Palestinians, but how does destroying the ecosystem of the Red Sea or disrupting food shipments to Ethiopia or to Yemen or Somalia, how does that serve anyone? So I think ultimately one can blame Iran, and we do blame Iran for this, but we also assign responsibility to the Houthi who claim to govern Yemen in the name of the people, but don't really, and they pose a constant threat to their neighbors.
هناك تقارير عن محادثات سرية جرت بين الولايات المتحدة وإيران. هل يمكن أن تعطينا بعض التفاصيل؟
So I've seen those articles by anonymous U.S. officials, so I can't validate something by unnamed officials. What I can say is, and we're very clear about it, we have a number of channels to Tehran, and of course we have public messaging. And I would say our public messaging and our private messaging is pretty consistently. We are calling on Iran to step back from the escalatory posture that it has taken for years now in the region, the destabilizing activities that it has underwritten, that it has supported, the provision of advanced weaponry to non-state actors who have more advanced weapons than the government itself in Iraq and in Lebanon. It's a terrible situation that Iran has taken advantage of, and it's really to the detriment of all of the countries of the region.
هل تقتنع الولايات المتحدة بقول الإيرانيين أن أذرعها في المنطقة يتصرفون بشكل مستقل؟
Well, what I do know is that they are continuing to supply them with weaponry. So I wouldn't put much stock in the notion that they are pressuring the Houthi in any sense. We are working to reduce the load of weaponry that the Houthi have at their disposal. So if Iran stops supplying the Houthi, resupplying them, that would help bring a pretty quick end to this terrible threat to the Red Sea and to shippers. As to the question of whether these proxies and militias act on their own, sometimes they do, sometimes, very often, they act in alignment with Iran, at Iran's urging, even at Iran's direction, and they are supplied consistently by Iran.
حول هذه قنوات الاتصال مع الإيرانيين، هل تتناقشون وتتبحثون عن قرب أكثر مع حلفائكم في المنطقة في هذا الخصوص وفيما يتعلق بإيران؟
So we have very constant and close discussions with our partners in the region, especially in the Gulf. And the Gulf countries, the countries of the Arabian Peninsula, are the ones who feel, I would say, most directly threatened by many of Iran's activities. And the weaponry that Iran has proliferated to the Houthi, to Kataib Hezbollah, to other Iraqi groups, have been used to target Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait. So we have very regular dialogues with them on a common approach or a complementary approach, I would say, in our dealings with Iran.
بالانتقال إلى جبهة أخرى، إلى ذراع آخر لإيران في المنطقة، إلى جبهة لبنان الجنوبية، هل نحن أمام خطر أقرب لحرب شاملة بين حزب الله وإسرائيل؟
So I would say that has varied from week to week, almost from day to day. It is a place of great volatility. a great risk. We've seen Hassan Nasrallah and Hezbollah take a lot of risks, which could take them into a very dangerous place, could take Lebanon itself into a dangerous place. We are applying our diplomatic energy through the good offices of Amos Hochstein to discuss between parties how they might come to an arrangement. We think that will probably happen when there is a humanitarian pause. Perhaps it could happen sooner, but we're working actively on that front. But in the meantime, it is a dangerous game. The rules can be misunderstood by Hezbollah, or the limits of risk can be misunderstood by Hezbollah. And it's clear that the Israeli government and the Israeli military is not going to take the chance of an attack of substantial size in the north and be caught flat-footed. So it is a very risky game that at various times Hezbollah has played.
هل يمكن التوصل إلى اتفاق اليوم في لبنان منفصل عن الوضع في غزة؟
I think certainly a humanitarian pause provides greater opportunity, but I don't exclude the opportunity that it could come nonetheless in any case.
هناك انطباع بأن الولايات المتحدة لا ترى الفراغ الرئاسي في لبنان كأولوية في الوقت الحالي، هل هذا صحيح؟
Well, I guess I would ask, is it a priority for the Lebanese political class? Because ultimately, it is the Lebanese themselves, Lebanon's political leaders, who have it within their hands any day to settle on this. So is it a priority for the Lebanese? That's what I would ask. I think it is for the public. And I think the public is very frustrated by a year and a half without, almost headless, without a good functioning, empowered government. So I have to always ask, first of all, is it the priority of the Lebanese political class? And it's not clear that it is.
هل ستعارض الولايات المتحدة أو تمنع إعطاء حزب الله أي مكافأة في حال التزم بقواعد الاشتباك؟
Well, look, Hezbollah has really, it's hard to say over the past 40 years, it's hard to point to any good that Hezbollah has brought to Lebanon, to the Lebanese people, to the Lebanese government, one government after another. We think it's a terrible thing that Hezbollah has repeatedly exercised a veto over many governments because it wields, the greatest arms. I look forward to the day when there is a righting of that balance and where the state itself will have the monopoly on weapons and so forth, and Hezbollah could be a normal party, but it's not.
سيدة باربرا ليف، مساعدة وزير الخارجية الأميركي لشؤون الشرق الأدنى، شكرا جزيلا لك على إعطائنا هذه المقابلة.
Thank you.